Matthew Shepard's death sent shockwaves through the country. It was a horrific act of violence against an out gay man who was beaten and pistol whipped, strung up on a fence post, and left to die in Laramie, Wyoming. He was beaten on October 6, 1998, and he died 6 days later. There were candlelight vigils held across the nation. I attended one at the Westport Unitarian Universalist congregation. It was standing room only. Those of us alive at that time remember Matthew Shepard's death and the subsequent trial of his murderers. In 2009, federal hate crime legislation was passed in his memory. On November 28th of that same year, Rita Hester, a trans woman, was stabbed to death in her apartment. Other than the people who knew her in Boston and the vigil that was held on December 4th with 250 people in attendance, not very many people beyond Boston knew of her heinous death that year. The contrast between the heinous death of a white young gay man and the heinous death of a black trans woman is startling and sadly a fact that needs to be dealt with in this country. Look at our 2 boards filled with 4x6 cards of those transgender people who died in 2018. There are 2 things that should immediately jump out to us. Many of these individuals are people of color, and the vast majority are people who identify as trans women. 2 groups of people in our society who are often maligned with impunity. But there is another theme that is evident as you read the bios of these individuals. Their lives were treated with indignity. In many cases, the police and the press erased their identity by using their birth names and their birth-assigned gender. And it is this indignity that enraged the mourners of Rita Hester in 1998. Not only did the press describe Rita as male and he, they placed her name in quotations. Rita Hester was a performer who made her living touring in Europe. She has been described as an incredibly vivacious, outgoing woman. She was equally comfortable and welcomed in Jacques, a local transgender bar, and in the local straight bars alike. The Boston trans community was still reeling from the trans panic defense used in the Chanel Pickett murder case in 1997. Her murderer, William Palmer, was charged with first-degree murder but convicted only on assault and battery and sentenced to 2 years in prison. The lawyer claimed William Palmer panicked after discovering that Chanel was anatomically a male, even though testimony was given that William Palmer had multiple trans partners prior to Ms. Pickett. But as Nancy Nedgeroni wrote in a story about this case in 1997, a side note, the language used in 1997 was different than used today. The reality of trans women is this. If they cannot pass as real women, they will be hired only for the most degrading and lowest paying jobs. They will be harassed regularly and find themselves shunned by much of society. Those that can pass as women can land more respectable jobs, but then must live with the inner paranoia and personal distance it takes to maintain a false front. Those that manage to land a decent job and gradually let their mask slip without getting fired often find the world a lonely and insincere place. Rural transsexuals have been burned out of their homes while urban girls perish by drugs, AIDS, and murder with alarming regularity. Chanel's story is one where she was outed at her place of employment at NYNEX as being transgender and harassed by her supervisor. She complained to Human Resources, and HR supported her supervisor's stance. The harassment continued, and she began to stand up for herself and was then fired by the company. She was unable to find employment, and with her spiraling towards homelessness and poverty, she turned to prostitution as a means of survival. Ironically, William Palmer, who killed her, was not her trick, but her date. They first met at Playland, a gay bar in the Boston area. They had been dating for a while, and she was hoping for a deeper relationship with him. He promised her that he would help her get back on her feet again. Her murder was the end of the road of a long spiral downward, in part because there are no legal protections for transgender individuals in the workplace. The press painted Ms. Pickett in the most derogatory terms, and Mr. Palmer as a clean-cut, preppy, all-American bloke who had no recourse but to recoil in fear and loathing at the prospect of sleeping with a trans woman who was still anatomically male. The year after the Pickett murder trial, there was another murder of a trans woman by the name of Monique Thomas. Monique was tied up and stabbed multiple times in her apartment. Her death happened about 2 months before Rita Hester's. This context preceding Rita Hester's murder filled the community with outrage when yet again a woman who has lived openly as Rita for 10 years is called he and male and name in quotes. Her existence as trans was erased in the media. This was a person who was well known in the LGBTQ and African American communities. Samantha Allen, in an article about Transgender Remembrance Day history, writes, Hester was a rock and roll musician and a performer who danced at venues like Jacques Cabaret. At the time of her death, she had been out as a woman for several years. She was well established in the community, a beloved and ubiquitous Boston presence. Everyone knew Rita and vice versa. Teresa Suarez, an activist working with Cambridge Cares about AIDS at the time of the 1998 vigil, told Edge Boston in 2008. She was a very smart, bright young lady, and she was a shining star. Whenever she arrived at Jacques, her presence would be noticed by anyone. She was so elegant, and as beautiful as she was, she would not try to make anyone else look less. The press, however, referred to her as a man who sported long braids and preferred women's clothes, and as someone who was living an apparent double life. The vigil held in her memory on December 4 was done in both outrage that the press had erased her existence as the dynamic woman that she was, and the fact that yet another trans woman was killed. The procession ended in front of her apartment with 250 people, including her mother and siblings, kneeling to recite the Lord's Prayer. Her murder to date has never been solved. There was no forced entry. Nothing was stolen from the apartment. There is the belief that whoever killed her was someone that she knew. Gwendolyn Ann Smith, then a computer programmer for America Online, learned of Rita Hester's death and the press insensitive reporting. After chatting on a transgender community forum on AOL, she decided that if the press was going to misrepresent these individuals' lives, then she was going to have to report about them herself. She created Remembering Our Dead project as a means to bring light to these lives that have been cut short. The following year, in 1999, San Francisco hosted the first Transgender Day of Remembrance. This event is now held in dozens of countries around the world. And sadly, in the U.S., there are at least 2 transgender people murdered per month. There are probably others that go unreported for all of the reasons already mentioned regarding police and press reporting. The legacy that Rita Hester has unknowingly inspired, the hope that transgender individuals will have dignity restored and honored. Their lives matter. Their gifts matter. We live in a state where transgender people are harassed and attacked on a constant basis. 6 trans individuals were murdered in the state of Florida this year. Florida's hate crime laws do not cover gender identity expression. There are no statewide anti-discrimination laws protecting gender identity expression nor sexual orientation. Many counties and municipalities do have anti-discrimination laws protecting LGBTQ individuals, but Manatee County and the city of Bradenton are not one of them. And here's an idea. If Manatee Unitarian Universalist Fellowship Social Justice Committee wanted to start a campaign to change this for Bradenton residents, I believe there would be outside support for such a campaign for justice. Over 4,000 LGBTQ individuals and their allies attended Manatee Pride last year. In order for a person in Florida to have their gender changed on their birth certificate, they need to provide an affidavit from the physician that they have completed sex reassignment surgery according to appropriate medical procedures. This adds additional discrimination against those who identify as transgender but have not, for any variety of reasons, lack of health care, financial costs, etc., been able to legally change their gender identification on their birth certificate and other legal documents. The stories shared here also highlight the need for the passage of ENDA, the Employment Non-Discrimination Act. There are still, 20 years after Ms. Pickett's murder, still no employment protections for transgender or LGBTQ individuals. While it passed in the Senate in 2013, it died in the House precisely because it included language protecting transgender individuals. Religious exemptions to enforcing ENDA resulted in several pro-LGBT groups to remove their endorsement of the bill as worded in 2014. But that does not remove the need for legislation on the national level. Here in Florida, there are only a few counties and municipalities that ban employment discrimination based on sexual identity and gender identity expression. Again, City of Bradenton and Manatee County are not among them. Even if an Employment Non-Discrimination Act were to be passed today, it would not give protection to those who identify as transgender or non-binary. This is because a few weeks ago, the White House administration announced that they were going to narrow the definition of sex as either male or female, unchangeable, and determined by the genitals that a person is born with. Such a definition would essentially erase those who identify as transgender, non-binary, intersex, or guervedosis. The administration is claiming they are grounding their definition in science, but their science is faulty. Here are some of those scientific facts. Current findings show that trans women brain functions are more similar to cis women brain functions than cis men brain functions. The term cis refers to individuals whose gender identification matches the physical markers of their gender. Intersex individuals have undetermined genitalia, and the default has been for doctors to alter the infant at birth to female, even though the infant's chromosomes may be male. And gravidosis is a rare mutation where male children are born with the outward appearance of being a female, but when they reach the age of puberty, their testicles and penis develop, and they take on masculine appearances. The science backs up the existence of transgender individuals. This administration will not succeed to silence the truth of our trans siblings' experiences. Our role as Unitarian Universalists in this is clear. We need to continue to be a safe place for people who are transgender. We need to continue to educate ourselves on the issues that transgender people face in the community and in other religious communities. We need to continue to advocate for and support organizations like PRISM to continue the work in the community with resources for transgender individuals. May we continue to move on the side of love in all our interactions with one another, honoring and protecting their inherent worth and dignity. Blessed be. We will now begin our memorial of those who have died since the last Transgender Day of Remembrance. The UUAA Side of Love campaign states, "It is important to know that not everyone remembered self-identified as transgender, though each was a victim of violence based on bias against transgender and gender variant people. Some are friends, lovers, and allies who were killed while they were with someone who was transgender. Others may not have identified as such, but were perceived to be somehow gender variant by their attackers. The Transgender Day of Remembrance is more than just a memorial. It raises public awareness of the hatred and violence against those in our transgender community, which often the media suppresses. It publicly mourns and honors the lives of those who might otherwise be forgotten, giving their silenced lives new voice. It is an opportunity to meet hatred and indifference with love and respect. Day of Remembrance does just that. It remembers the forgotten who were also children, parents, lovers, and friends, who were part of all of our communities. Day of Remembrance offers us all an opportunity to stand together and say no more. Since last year's Day of Remembrance in the United States, there have been 27 transgender folks reported to be murdered. It is suspected that there were many more that have gone unreported as being transgender related. I will read their names, their date of death, location in the United States, and their age. Their photograph with more details of their life, including how they died, is placed on these bulletin boards for you to view later. After each name and bio of the person is read, I'm asking you to respond in unison with, "We grieve your loss today." Let's just say that right now. We grieve your loss today. Brooklyn Brianna Stevenson died November 27th, 2017 in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Brooklyn was 31 years of age. We grieve your loss today. Brandy Seals died December 13th, 2017, Houston, Texas. Her age was unreported. We grieve your loss today. Christy Lee Steele Nunslian died January 5th, 2018, North Adams, Massachusetts, 42 years of age. We grieve your loss today. Vicky Gutierrez died January 10th, 2018, Los Angeles, California, 33-year-old Honduran immigrant. We grieve your loss today. Celine Walker died February 4th, 2018, Jacksonville, Florida, age 36. We grieve your loss today. Tanya Harvey died February 6th, 2018, Buffalo, New York, 35 years of age. We grieve your loss today. Zachariah Fry died between mid-January and mid-February 2018, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 28 years of age. We grieve your loss today. Felicia Mitchell died February 23rd, 2018, Cleveland, Ohio, age 45. We grieve your loss today. Amia Teray Berryman died March 26, 2018, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 28 years old. We grieve your loss today. Sasha Wall died April 1st, 2018, Chesterfield County, South Carolina, age 29. We grieve your loss today. Carla Patricia Flores Pavon, May 9, 2018, Dallas, Texas, age 26. We grieve your loss today. Nicole Hall, May 12, 2018, Dallas, Texas, 39 years of age. We grieve your loss today. Nino Fortson died May 13, 2018, Atlanta, Georgia, 36 years old. We grieve your loss today. Gigi Pierce, May 21st, 2018, Portland, Oregon, 28 years of age. We grieve your loss today. Roxana Hernandez, May 25th, 2018, died in a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility. We grieve your loss today. Tasha English, June 1st, 2018, Jacksonville, Florida, 38 years old. We grieve your loss today. Kathalina Christina James died June 24th, 2018, Jacksonville, Florida, 24 years of age. We grieve your loss today. Jesse Sumler, July 19th, 2018, Jacksonville, Florida, age 26. We grieve your loss today. Keisha Wells, July 19th, 2018, Cleveland, Ohio, 58 years old. We grieve your loss today. Sasha Garden, July 19th, 2018, Orlando, Florida, age 27. We grieve your loss today. Dejanae Stanton, August 30th, 2018, Chicago, Illinois, age 24. We grieve your loss today. Vontasia Bell also died August 30th, 2018, Shreveport, Louisiana, 18 years old. We grieve your loss today. Nikki Enriquez died September 2018, Laredo, Texas, 28 years of age. We grieve your loss today. Shanti Tucker died September 5th, 2018, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 30 years old. We grieve your loss today. London Moore died September 8th, 2018, Northport, Florida, 20 years old. We grieve your loss today. Sierra Minaj Carter Frazier, October 3rd, 2018, Chicago, Illinois, age 31. We grieve your loss today. A prayer by Reverend Sunshine Jeremiah Wolf, one of our transgender ministers in our movement. On this Transgender Day of Remembrance, we remember those who have been murdered for being who they are, those who face violence on a daily basis, those who have lost loved ones, those who worry for loved ones. May we come to a time when we cease to shame children around gender roles and expression, where we allow for freedom and exploration of identity and expression, and to a world that operates from love, especially when things are difficult and confusing. May all of us who live with the threat of violence find support, strength, community, hope, and safety from violence. Blessed be. I now invite our choir to sing.
Our second anthem this morning is May Love Surround You.